Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Ham Radio Basics Live, Season 1, Episode 32. Very special guest, James is the CEO of Ham Radio Prep. James, how are you this evening?
I'm doing great. Thanks for setting this up, Bill. And that was a heck of an intro countdown that you had. I feel like your intro is so awesome, and I'm sitting here in my newly renovated office. I look like I'm in like a hostage situation or something. I promise I'm not being held hostage. Bill, thanks so much for setting this up.
Yeah, as long as you're not being held hostage, we're good here. And but one of the things I like to do when I'm getting to know people, one of the first things is one of the first questions I ask is how did you get into ham radio? So how did you get into ham radio, James?
That's a great place to start. So first, I'm James KN4NEH. I'm the CEO of Ham Radio Prep. Um, I hear a lot of stories of people getting into ham radio, obviously through ham radio prep, and there's a lot of different journeys that it takes. Mine is a little bit more on the nerdy side. So I studied electrical engineering at Vanderbilt University, graduated in 2014. Um, but it wasn't even that really got me into ham. I was like 2 years out of college and I was living at an apartment complex, and had a friend of mine that was not an engineer. He was kind of more like a prepper, really, to tell you the truth. Like he was just into all kinds of stuff, and he started getting his ham radio license, and he showed me what he was studying, and I was like, man, I know all this stuff. Like this is like you're learning like V equals IR, Ohm's law, except for like the ham radio operation stuff. But when he showed me that in 2016, I was like, I started helping him kind of helping him study, and then that was kind of the genesis of ham radio prep, and then also kind of the why I decided to get my license. I was like, hey, if you're gonna do it, I'm gonna get mine too. Might as well. And I actually wrote the first technician license class for ham radio prep while I studied for my technician at the same time. And then I got my license, I think, in 2018, and then kind of never looked back from there. Um, how did you? What was it? How did you get your license, Bill? Or
That's
what?
that's a that's a real good question, James. I met the most beautiful woman in the world. Moved from Ohio down to Florida, cold, wet, rainy Ohio down to Florida. Okay, and was just a side note. It's the best thing that ever happened to me. Okay, it's like I said, why didn't I marry you 30 years ago? Okay, well, that's a whole another evening and story. But one of the things that I got acquainted to real quickly after being down in Florida was, hurricanes. That's a part of life down here. That's one of the, you know, living in paradise has some drawbacks, and that's one of the really big ones. And being prepared for a hurricane. And I always fancied myself. I didn't fancy myself a prepper, but I fancied myself as a person who was ready for situations. So they said, a lot of times, cell phone towers could go down, communication. The only real means of communication is ham radio. And I'm like, wow, okay. So in 2014, in a very short period of time, I'm going to say probably about a year and 6 months, I passed all three of my exams. It was like boom, boom, boom.
So you just
And
went back to back.
I
Let
just went back to
technician, general,
back.
amateur, extra.
Yeah, I
Damn.
know a
Yeah.
lot of guys
That's not
will
easy. That's not
yeah,
easy to do.
it wasn't. And and I gotta say this, everybody's right. The extra takes, it really takes some you gotta really study that. And I know with your course, we'll get to that here in a minute. But I didn't have the benefit of your course back then when I did this. And one of the and what I did was there's a company out there, and I'm not sure, they're pretty small, but I really liked them, and somebody else just actually bought them. They were going to close shop and bought them. You may know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and the one thing that I liked about them compared to the other ones that were available at the time, they rotated their questions, so you just didn't memorize the answers. You knew the answers, okay? And that's one of the things that I really kind of prided myself on was, you know, getting to understand, because by nature I've been in computers all my life, information systems for 30 plus years, but not on the, you know, you're perfect electrical engineer side. Okay, I
Yeah,
wasn't.
well, and see, that's the thing is like I even came from electrical engineering. So when I was coming along before, before I started building ham radio prep, I looked at it and I was like, if I'm having trouble, going through this course and making sure I'm passing my exam, I figure there's a lot of other people that want, something like I do. Like, on the one hand, a lot of people would be like, just read this textbook. I'm like, I just went to engineering school. I read enough textbooks. I don't want to read a textbook. It's a great reference. Like, you want the information. But then on the other hand, it was kind of like take the endless practice test. And so I wanted something that had video, it was interactive, had some games. And so I just set about, doing it. And that's kind of, I think that's the sweet spot with ham radio prep today is, and the other thing I'll say is um, we don't always publish our updates out to like YouTube and stuff like that. We're getting a little bit better about that, but our course has improved like even from a year ago. If you were taking the course a year ago, the course that we're doing today is 1,000% better because we're constantly in an innovation cycle. We are constantly updating, and you may not even see it on the outside because our team is back here working behind the scenes. But now if you go into like the technician course, that first video is only like 8 minutes. It's like everything is very fast to the point, and we're kind of finding the perfect balance between number one, teaching the underlying concepts, but number two, keeping you engaged and making sure that it goes fast enough so you can actually get your license. Because if you make the videos too long and you teach too much, then everybody drops off and they don't. We
Mhm.
study those analytics and we can see like, okay, if you make the video too in depth, then people drop off. But at the same time, if you understand kind of the base concepts, then you can actually calculate the questions without having to memorize them. So that's where we're always trying to like find kind of that perfect middle ground. And we just study the course completion rates and just make sure that they're constantly getting better. And right now our mobile app is where we're really getting the highest course completion rates. It has some of our, because it's a completely custom software that we've built. Like you have like the ability to review or miss questions. We randomize the answers. We do some more advanced analytics. And so it ends up working out really well for a lot of folks.
That and one of the questions, and you kind of alluded to it. I know you have. How many people do you have working there?
So we have a number of different hams that kind of support the project. Like you've probably seen Professor Jim in for
Hmm.
BFR. Man, that guy Jim is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, he
We
is.
just linked up because we're both in the Atlanta area, and he just has a passion for getting new hams licensed on the air. He's a VE here. He does a lot of test sessions, and we teamed up like 2 years ago, and it's just been we've just been taking off ever since. We have a new guy, Max, who's in Huntsville, who's helping us, um, and he's like, I'm drawing a blank on his call. Let me see if I can find his call for you really quick. But Max is like, I mean, he runs like a space club in University of Huntsville, Alabama, and he's like a whiz. So he's really helping us with like building out new features and stuff that really will kind of gamify amateur radio and help get things that he would really like and I would really like, and so he's been a big help. You'll see him on a lot of our social media channels. I do some of the development myself. We also have some help on the development team. So we're a small scrappy team here, but I'm full time, dedicated to building out ham radio prep and our new app too. So, you know, it's amazing what you can accomplish when you have kind of just a mindset of just getting 1% better every single day. I look back sometimes and I'm like, holy cow, I can't believe everything we've done over the last year, and we're only getting faster. So
Yeah, and the two things that I have to add, the course on Baofangs and Baofangs and a lot, and also on the HF Masterclass. I mean, those are strokes of genius because one of the things I get a lot of questions via email to Ham Radio Basics, and one of the questions I get a lot. How do I start with HF? And I mean, you guys it's just all laid out there. You do everything from equipment to antennas and how to call CQ. I mean, it's everything. It's one stop shopping.
Yeah, man. I appreciate it, Bill, but it's the same thing you're doing on YouTube, man. And we're starting to bring a lot of that onto YouTube too. But it's just like, look, everybody, it's no secret in ham radio that people get their license and they get stuck, and we see it too. And so we're we release a lot of free guides. We also have the paid classes, so like it just gives you a structure, right? Like
Hmm.
sometimes you get kind of lost in the vortex. Like I watch a lot of ham radio YouTube and stuff, but you only have so many hours in the day, so sometimes you kind of get lost in the vortex. Like
Yeah.
I was watching I was learning about like ground planes yesterday, and I was trying to calculate how big I need to make my ground plane for this antenna that I have out here. By the way, shout out to Smoke and Ape on the ground plane.
Oh yeah.
He's got a really good video on, like he does really good guides. And I've watched a ton of your videos, Bill, like just like on the like getting up and running. And for me, because I'm like living a lot of it too, I feel like I kind of am like trying to just bring other people along on the journey, you know? Like I've only been a
Yeah.
ham for a few years, and there's so much to learn. It's like you could this hobby is like a mile wide and it's a mile deep. You can go any which way that you want to go.
You
I
know.
recently just did I've done PODA for some time, but I recently just did soda, which kind of very similar, right? But like, there's this guy in Atlanta named Yusuf, who like his thing is he just loves to climb up a mountain, and he has a YouTube channel too. Climb up a mountain and just set up a wire antenna and activate. I do I mostly operate from home here, but like you can, I mean, whatever you want to do. If you're just into a handheld, if you just got a farm, like got my parents set up with ham radio now at their farm up in North Georgia. It's great for that. It's great for kind of venturing. It's great for just like if you just want to set up a badass station and just start making contacts from around the world from your house. You can do that too. So I mean, you can kind of get lost in just all the things that there are to learn. And so it's just about trying to make some pathways and some steps so that somebody who's like completely new doesn't get overwhelmed when you jump into talking about uh, you know ground planes and antenna modeling and Smith charts and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to go, you have to go in
Hmm.
the right order.
Well, To, and I'm sure you know who To is. He called it when I had him on the hobby of a thousand hobbies, and that's exactly what it is. It really is, and that's the beautiful thing about it. If you want to do FT8, fine. If you want to do CW, fine. If you want to do DX, fine. If you want to do QRP, fine. It's all good. And the thing that really gets me are the sad hams out there. Okay, FT8's not a real part of ham radio. You hear all that stuff. And you know what? I shut out the noise instantly. Okay. Because I'll tell you what, I'm all about promoting this hobby and having fun. That's what, James, I know you and me and everybody I know, like the YouTubers bunch, we have fun doing this. Okay. It's not a chore. It's not a burden. It's not, oh, I'm going to have to do CW today. Or no, it's fun. It's what we want to do. And I think that's one of the things that kind of drags other people down is when these sad hams get out there and they start just, pontificating stuff. And I'm like, you know what? Enjoy it. There's so much to do.
Yeah, and it's every hobby too, right? Like no matter what you get into, there's going to be kind of naysayers. There's going to be, and it all and everybody has, everybody's entitled to an opinion. Like at ham radio prep, if we had listened to people that said that they didn't like us at the very beginning, and we let the people that didn't want ham radio prep be around, then we wouldn't have been able to build everything that we've been able to build. And the great thing about ham radio prep is we reach a lot of people that just had kind of a slight interest in ham radio or maybe heard about ham radio, and we get them licensed and we get them on the air. And I think we're really like leading the charge on just bringing new hams in that kind of breaking down the barrier to entry. But I see it a lot with like World Radio League, our new logbook application. I mean, 95% of people are like, "Hey, we love that you're, building something new. It's awesome." You get a few people who are like, for one reason or another, they don't like it, or they feel like it doesn't have, whatever reason. But I'm like, hey, I listen to the people that like are our students and our users, and say like, what do you guys want? The people that love it, and that never steers me wrong. Like, you listen to the people that actually are trying to be constructive, and they're like, hey, let's build something new, let's do something cool. There's a lot of those. That's 98% of the people. Um, like, sometimes I feel like, especially as a YouTuber, I don't know. Do you ever get any of like kind of haters in your comments or anything like that?
Oh yeah, all the time. So I kind of got used to it because I have another channel that focuses on drones, and the haters just, I mean, they just, they come out of the woodwork at times and
Yeah.
everything. And, and one of the things, I don't give them oxygen. Okay. I shut them down. And people say, you deleted my comment. I said, well, you know what? It deserved to be deleted. Okay. It's just like, I don't, I'm not judge, jury, and executioner, but you know what? If you're not posting a positive message about the content, all right, it doesn't belong here. And that's the same thing. And fortunately, with ham radio, my ham radio channel, really haven't run into it a lot per se on the channel, which I think is pretty good. But one of the things, and you alluded to it, and is you go out there, and I've always said this from day one when I started the channel. One of the biggest problems is, okay, you go out, you pass your tech, you pass your general, you pass your extra, okay, and then boom, you're there, and it's just like, okay, now what? And
You've done some great
sometimes,
videos on that too.
thank you.
Yeah, man, that's incredible, because that's the gap, and you're
Mhm.
just pushing people over that
in
gap.
you know in a couple of things that I did was, one of the things, people say a lot of bad stuff about ARRL, and I said, you know what, okay, it's the only game in town here, guys. They're, believe it or not, they do advocate for us. All right, they really are our voice with the FCC. So it's like there's no other game in town. And the other thing, I talk about our ham radio clubs. A lot of people are very fortunate to have a good one in their area. I have a good one. I'm part of it. And it's mostly, I'm 65, and most of them are probably around my age, which is good, and it's very relatable. But there are a lot of other ones. For example, there's one close to where I live here, and it's and I would be the youngest person there. Okay,
Well,
and
age is a number, man. I'm telling you,
yeah.
because and you see it in ham radio too. Because I mean, like, I have friends from, like I was saying, like Max, who's 18, 19, who knows more about ham radio than I do. He's a whiz. And then I have people in their 60s and 70s and even 80s that I talk to, and it's all about mindset. If you have a mindset that you want to learn new things and you want to do new
Mhm.
things, you will do well in ham radio.
Oh yeah.
And
Well,
it's like, and people say, well, we need to get the youth involved, and like, yeah, we do. Like, I just met with the Georgia Tech amateur radio club. Like, they got a really good club here in Atlanta. There's a lot of Vanderbilt, my alma mater, they have a really good club. There's lots of people involved, and it is growing. I mean, I can't point to the numbers to say it, but just from the people that I talk to, you've got the full age spectrum. So we're doing
mhm.
great, to tell you the truth.
My thing now, and I'm trying to do this ever so gently, is to cajole my wife into getting her technician license. And I told her, I said, look, I said, this class that James has an incredible product. So I'm trying to get her into that
Get her
mindset, into that group.
get her
I
on the
told her, I said,
mobile
you
app.
don't have to do general, you don't have to do extra, I'm not expecting that, but take a look at it and
Have you ever had her
really.
like key up with you while you're operating or anything?
Yeah, I did, and she was real. Like, for example, when I busted out my 705 for the first time, and I'm sitting there in the living room, and she hears that I made it, my first contact with it. She's like, "Wow!" She said, that's pretty cool. And I said, do you know where he was? She said, no. I said, Arizona. And I said, you know what's even more incredible about that? And I tried to explain it to her. I said, I was operating QRP. And she says, what's QRP? I said, I was operating only on 10 watts instead of, I can go up to 100 watts. So I was doing it only on 10. And I reached a gentleman in Arizona. And she's like, wow, that is pretty cool. So, it's kind of feeding that a little bit.
It's so cool, and and you got like, that's what you and a lot of the other like, I love the ham radio YouTubers. Like you said, you mentioned Jason, like Hayden. I don't know if you know him from like
I
Ham
know
Radio
Aiden. Yeah.
DX. I mean, we're kind of just like getting more into like the YouTube world. We're mostly all consumers of YouTube, but like ham radio YouTube has done more for the hobby than so many other things because
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's just so easy to watch, and then it gets put into the feeds of people that maybe are like, maybe you're just have an interest that overlaps with ham radio a little bit, and then you get a ham radio video in your feed, and then you're starting to check it out too. But um, it's funny that you bought that IC 705. Like, do you have the 7300 too? Are
Yes.
you
I have
yeah?
7,300 too. Yeah.
It's I don't it's definitely like a splurge, right? To get a
Oh, yeah.
705 in addition to the 7300. Jim and he's kind of like my like local Elmer here because he's taught me so much, but he just got a 705 too, and I'm like, I mean, it's definitely a splurge because you got your 7300. You can pretty much do everything that you want. I guess it's like more portable. It's a really cool radio and everything, but that's how you're having a good time is when you're just
Oh,
adding some
yeah.
extra radios to the arsenal.
Well, see, for me, in what I did was, a couple of weeks ago, I combined my drone channel with the ham radio channel. It's real interesting because, some of the guys from Copy and Ham Radios first found me because of my drone videos. Okay, and it's real interesting because there's a number of guys who watch or good faithful followers on my drone channel are ham radio guys, which was absolutely totally cool. Well, one of the things that I did was I took one of my drones up and I try to explain. I have a situation. You know, every time I operate, I have to throw up my. Usually, I throw up my MPass 2.0 vertical chameleon. Okay, because I live in an HOA because I'm not allowed quote unquote a permanent antenna up, but I am allowed a 20-foot flagpole. Okay.
Nice.
So I posed the problem to them, and I have a huge side yard. And getting a 20-foot flagpole, I just need to get permission from the HOA. That's not a problem. I do have several other problems though. For example, radials. I have to bury those things so deep it's not funny because we have a service that comes and cut our grass, every week or so. So there's problem number one. The other problem is running coax from that antenna, from the telephone pole into the house. The problem is we have irrigation here. Okay, all kind of water pipes. So I'm kind of confronted on several ends.
Hey, have you heard of the Stoics, like the Marcus Aurelius and like all this like Stoicism?
Hmm.
So there's a saying, the obstacle is the way.
Yeah.
So there you go, man. You will figure it out. You got an
Oh, I
irrigation
will.
system. You got to bury those radials. You got a flagpole antenna. But I mean, it sounds like you've basically got the plan. You
Yeah, I
just have
got
to
the plan.
implement it.
Although my better half is not real thrilled with me drilling into or having someone drill into the side of the house to put the coax through and get and I told her, I said it would be sealed. There's going to be no problems. It's just like, sometimes she hears what she wants to hear, and it's just like I have to
This is
convince her otherwise.
so
But I
my
told her, I
so
said, to get somebody qualified to do that.
Yeah, so my wife's from Venezuela, and I've been trying to get her in, and Venezuela actually has a really big radio club. So like I'll be like, hey, check this out. You could actually make contacts with Venezuela if you get into this. But I'm kind of in the same thing because, like I said, I just renovated it. Like I'm not being held hostage. This is actually my upstairs office. Is just we repainted and redid everything, and my radio room is in the basement right now. But what I realized is I keep on walking from my upstairs down to my radio room like throughout the day, and I'm like, okay, I need to now make my upstairs office into my actually just combine it and have one place for my radio room. I don't have an HOA or anything, which is good. But I've been I have an in-fed antenna in my backyard right now, and then I have a vertical that's back there too. So I have to run coax, through here and like come in through the roof or something. And I was telling my wife about it. She's just like giving me kind of the look like, oh, our newly renovated space. You're gonna start drilling some holes, but it's not it's not that big of a deal. I also have like this little window thing. I don't know if you've seen these. Like you can get these inserts that fit into your window.
Yeah,
MFJ makes
pass throughs.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can get a pass through, but I don't really even like that as much. I'd rather just it's nice to kind of have a temporary setup, but I think I'm just going to drill the holes and just kind of get over with it. But I want to do I want to do the HF Yagi on my roof as well. Is kind of the latest thing that I'm eyeing because uh, my backyard's kind of sloped, and so to get a tower up, it has to be just that much taller. But, some I was talking to a guy at the Stone Mountain Hamfest, and he kinda scared me about the weight of it. Like, he's like, "You might wanna think about the weight if you're gonna put the tower on your roof." So, we'll take I'll think about that a little bit, but, I mean, I think one of the things that is really amazing for, especially for, like, new hams who, like, go out and start looking at all these fancy antennas, it's amazing what you can do with a wire antenna.
Oh yeah.
It still surprises me to this day. To this day, the best contacts I've ever had have been on um, like I can't remember how long it was, but just a in-fed wire antenna off my
Yeah.
back patio to a tree. I have been crushing it on that thing.
Well, one of the things that has given me some inspiration, and I've seen several videos on it, is some of the older drones that DJI has. They have people you can buy release mechanisms for them on Amazon. And what I've seen a couple of guys do is, they'll tie that bungee cord up there with a counterweight. They'll fly up over that branch, and the camera's pointed down, and they know where they're at. Boom, they drop it. Boom, you pull it down, it's up there. It's like, because I see all these guys up there, they're, trying to, throw it up over the tree, and, they miss 5 times, and, finally the 6th time they get it. And I'm like, it's perfect every time with something like that. I think that's a real cool thing to be able to do something like that.
Yeah, that really it. So what kind of drone is that? Because I mean, you got to be able to carry at least a decent amount of weight to
Yeah,
make
it
it
would be.
happen.
There's a DJI Air 2S. It's an older model, but it's compatible. And I know because I've seen several videos of guys carrying like water bottles with carrying underneath that, and it handles it fine. And and that's the thing is, you're only going to go 50, 75 feet up. So it's not like you're going to be hundreds of feet up in the air. And normally, the weight that a drone can handle like that. And I've seen the guys do that, and it works like clockwork. There's absolutely no business with that. And you're right. Okay. The easiest or some of the best antennas are just like simple end fed halfways. I mean, just boom, done. And you're making contacts all over the place. Okay. One of the guys that has really inspired me as far as antennas is concerned, there's two people. Walt, okay. He does such a Coastal Waves and Wires. He just does such a great job. And the other one is HOA Ham, Bob. He actually lives about an hour from me here because I live
That's
outside of
funny.
Tampa. And we connected, and he's just such a great guy. And he's got it down pat, and he's really got a wonderful setup at his house. And he did the chameleon flagpole antenna, which that started the ball rolling for me with something like that. So I'm
What
really kind
about
of excited.
have you looked? I mean, the flagpole is awesome, but what about the attic antennas? Have you looked at any doing an attic
Yeah,
antenna?
I did. In the way they built our house, the trusses are so spaced together. There's not a lot of room up there, unfortunately. I was because I had our previous house. We had some attic access up there, which was really nice. So we were able to store some things, and there was plenty of room. Here, there's like no room at all. I mean, you can't even. You can probably an inspector can pop up the panel, take a look at stuff, and that's about it. That's all you can really kind of do over there.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't say this because I'm gonna piss off some of the people in the HOAs, but I don't have to worry about it. My backyard is like looking like some sort of science experiment right now. I've got all I've got all kinds of, and then once I got stuff going on my roof is, the only thing I'm worried about is putting too much weight on my roof and something like falls. I actually like falls through, but um, I don't know. I'm not quite ready to put up the tower yet because it's just like you have to concrete. Well, I did talk to a guy who actually didn't concrete as in he just buried it really deep and he was totally fine. But I mean, to like do it the right way, you need to put some concrete down so you're not like, climbing an unstable tower, which that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah, that is. Well, one of the things for me, which I found last year for Christmas. I have a holiday giveaway and everything. And one of the things that I did was I gave away 2 courses from Ham Radio Prep. And
Nice, man. That's awesome.
oh, I got
We'll get
raved.
you the hookup after this, Bill. I'll get you some kind of hookup where you can do some more of that this year too.
Oh, I
I
would love to
appreciate
do that,
I
man.
appreciate everything that you're doing for amateur radio and
Thank
making the
you.
content. So we'll get something set up.
Yeah, you got like I said, it's just like I fell in love with you guys right away as soon as I saw it, and it's just like, I'm kicking myself like, why weren't you guys around when I got started? But it's just so one of the goal of my drone channel and the goal of the ham radio channel is, I want to, I really, my dad taught me a long time ago, keep it simple, and that's one of the things that I want to do. And you mentioned things about the videos and keeping them at a certain length. And that's one of the things that I try to do on my drone channel. It's one of the things that I try to do here, especially with the product demos, reviews, that kind of thing. Because if it's over 8, 9, 10 minutes, people are going to, tune out and not tune in. And so that's why I really try to keep that content kind of like, that 8, 9, 10 minute kind of time frame. And I try to keep it shorter that way. And it really bodes well. People really respond to that when it's that kind of length.
I totally agree. And man, your streaming setup is awesome, by the way. I just figured out that I can see the comments, but I have to connect my YouTube to be able to respond to them. So, uh, Andy, sorry for taking so long to respond, but hey, Andy.
Yeah, Andy's. I have a good core of people that follow the show here on Wednesday nights. It's 7, and and I gotta hand it. I didn't want to step on anybody's toes when I got started. And Jason from Ham Radio 2.0, he went the extra mile with me. Okay, it was just absolutely fantastic. There's a Google Calendar that shows when everybody's shows are on, and he said, pick a time slot for when you want to do your show when nobody else is on. So that's why I do Wednesdays at 7. And he has been so incredibly helpful. Josh has been helpful. All these guys have been great. Okay. And I've had pretty much all of them on. I had Scott from Ham Radio for non-techies. Who else?
That's
I've had,
another great channel. Yeah, Ham Radio for non-techies.
yeah, I've had Mike. He's now Ham Radio Tube. I absolutely love him. Smoking Ape is just fantastic. To is great. I had Frank from Tank Radio on. I've had pretty much the who's who of the ham
Eventually, y'all will
YouTube
make a
community.
YouTuber out of me. But it's amazing. I would say I spend my entire day working in ham radio. I'm kind of newer to like being on video myself and everything, but it's did you go through kind of like a weird thing with getting on video? It's weird seeing yourself and it's weird hearing yourself. You ever
Oh
hear
yeah.
yourself back? You're like, do I really
Yeah, when I
sound like
first
that?
started back in 2017, and I'm like, well, I talked real fast, and that's one thing looking back at some of those videos, I'm like, why did I talk so fast? I'm like, welcome, it's great day. It's just like almost like it was sped up, but no, it was my normal talking, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just
I
like,
would probably like that because I'll put YouTube videos on 1.5x sometimes and just listen to them quickly. So you're probably speaking my speed.
that probably was it. I mean, like when I first got started with it. But and it's kind of become a long way. And what I use for live streaming for this, it's called StreamYard, and it's the best that's out there. It's the easiest to use. It's just very intuitive. And what's wonderful is, you can keep the episodes when you're done and download them, and download this content, which is great. And one of the things that I've done on my drone channel is, you know I break up that show into segments. In that last segment, usually what I'll do is I'll chop it apart, and then I'll have a whole nother video on that. And it gets more, it gets more people going. Now I'm monetized on the drone channel. I'm not quite there yet on this channel, but and I tell people monetize. I'm like, oh yeah, you're really raking in the bucks. And I'm like, you know what? I'm like, I have about almost 13,000 subscribers on the drone channel, and I've gotten like 300, maybe $350 on a really good month. So it's like, you know what? It's keeping the lights on, guys. It's not buying that Porsche or that Mercedes in the driveway, okay? And the same thing's going
Maybe
to be for here.
maybe paying for that chameleon.
Yeah,
That'd
yeah,
be
there
a
you
good
go.
goal. That'd be a good goal there. Is
Well, in one of the things, and I'm going to be retiring probably about a year and a half, more than likely. And my wife's like, "You're all set. You don't have any worries about what you're going to be doing for that. It's content from one channel to the next, and they flow, and that's a good thing." As I talked to a couple of my drone pals, and they said, it's a really good idea that you have another channel up and running and going too, because if, say, for instance, something should happen, in the drone industry, you have your ham radio, and ham radio is not going to go anywhere. Okay, that's that's
yeah.
one of those things. It's always going to be around. um
Well,
I don't know if you
that's I mean that's an important point there too, because I think that like it's almost kind of like a freedom of speech issue as well too, like truly is, you mentioned the advocacy thing, which is, it's important that we have a licensing system, because you need to make sure that people are not um, that people are using the airways responsibly, because there is only so much bandwidth and you don't want to pollute all of that. But like the fact that we have this allocation that's just for amateurs and regular citizens to use, like that's not going anywhere. And we're kind of starting to dip our toes too. Like, I don't know if you saw about the proposed change to 60 meters, where they were
yeah,
trying to they're basically trying to make it just a smaller shred and kind of nuke the power on 60-meter bands. So we put out some materials about that, and we're able to get a bunch more comments on the FCC. But then there's also the good news. Now they're talking about, I don't know if it was eliminating or just bumping up baud rates. So I think it shows that we've got an FCC that's willing to play ball and understands the importance of amateur radio. Although, like, I was seeing something, I guess there's kind of two sides to the baud rate. Like, I even saw some hams um, who weren't like super in favor of raising the baud rate. So I need to read into that one a little bit more. But
what's
I mean,
what's
over.
real go no, go ahead.
No, no, go ahead.
No, what I was going to say was, it's real interesting because with my drone channel, I deal with the FAA, and obviously with ham radio, I deal with the FCC. And one of the things that I tell the
You're
guys,
dealing with all the agencies.
I'm dealing with alphabet soup here, but one of the things that I tell them though is, the FAA is kind of it's kind of like you got to give them a cattle prod, and they're not always with it. And for example, the big thing with drones is the thing called remote ID. Okay, it's so your drone can be seen, and it's the whole purpose is so it can be seen by law enforcement if they need to know where you're at. All right,
Yeah.
and they have just they have butchered this up and just made it a nightmare and a quagmire. And because
Not good for
drones,
privacy. Yeah.
it's just yeah, it's just a total mess. Okay, whereas and conversely, and I try to tell people, and everybody voiced their opinion, and everybody was like universally like, no, well, they did it anyway. But with the FCC, conversely, we voice our opinion with them, and you know what? More often than not, they'll respond to us, and they'll respond to us in a positive way, because they know, we kind of like, we're it for them. We're one of the big deals for them. So
Yeah, and I mean, look, The electromagnetic spectrum isn't going anywhere, so amateur radio isn't going anywhere either. And this, I mean, it's kind of clickbaity sometimes to say. Like, there's a lot of like clickbait. Oh, amateur radio is dying, or like
Yeah.
it's just it makes for a video that a lot of mostly hams are gonna click. But like, as me being somebody in the industry, I don't see that. I see people are going crazy in for amateur radio. They're dying to learn more. There's more people getting in it every single day. At events that I go to, I see the full spectrum of people from young to middle age to older people, and everybody's having a great time. So, you know, there might be a good clickbait video for you sometime, Bill. Ham radio's dying. You can put like a big thumbnail on that or something. You'll probably get a bunch of views,
And
but
have a couple of
it's not
tombstones
really
up
true.
there and on the thumbnail, and with a radio antenna on it, and
Yeah, and you
RIP
make a
ham
face
radio.
like,
Yeah,
like this or
like one
something.
of
Yeah.
those kind of deals. Yeah. Well, I don't know if you heard, but Kenwood made the announcement that the TH-75 is going to be out in January officially. And there's been just, I mean, it just talk about that has just exploded. I mean, just and everybody's so excited because Kenwood is finally. It's like you get a lot of newer hams in Kenwood. Did they make
Yeah, I
radios?
know.
Do you
Well,
know?
that's like me. Like I've never really operated Kenwood, but like a lot of my Elmers here in Atlanta love Kenwood. Like also like Elecraft. Like Elecraft to me just like screams class, It's like they're
Hmm.
just it's just it's almost like kind of luxury radio almost. Like they're just doing cool stuff. But I mean, you know, for me, what like the if you're gonna get a new radio, mostly like ICOM and Yaesu have been the ones that
Oh yeah.
we look at. But um, I think they're gonna change that. And if Kenwood's coming out with a new radio, it's because they're seeing something happen. Like they're doing the market research and they're like, wait, hold on a second. But amateur radio is doing really well right now. Let's time to hop back in, and maybe they've probably been paying attention to what others have been doing, like Elecraft too. So
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, and and you brought up a good point here because it's when companies see something and they jump on it, it's a signal and it's a sign, and and for example, I take it
they're
from
they're smart guys.
they
There's
are
some smart guys over there. They know what they're doing. They do the
they're
research.
they're intelligent about this. For example, I got a lot of views on and I found out kind of backhanded through I have a contact at DX Engineering, and he told me, the 7100 is going to be coming back. And boy, it's just like people jumped on that video right away and and I tell you what, it's like most people love that radio. There's a few detractors about it, but you think about it and it's and I hate to use the word all in one shopping or all in one stop, but it really kind of is. And, it's really kind of exciting that it
Which
is
radio
coming
is that
back.
you're talking about? That's
What's
coming
that?
back. Which radio are you talking about?
I call my 7100.
Oh, the 7100. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
People
That'll be
are
a beast.
and they originally were supposed to come out. It was supposed to come out in October, and then I talked to them, and they said now it's going to be like the 1st of December. And they said what they've done is they've had to update a lot of the parts on it, but that was the big thing was they weren't able to produce it because the part shortage, and that's why it hadn't come out because everybody and I could have kicked myself because about I'm going to say maybe about a year ago somebody offered one to me super discount. And it was brand new, never used, and I passed. It's like the timing wasn't right because I didn't have the money anyway. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like. But
Yeah.
now it's going to be coming out, and
I,
that's
I'm
exciting.
I'm not a very good like Hamfest shopper. Like that's one thing that I want to get better at is kind of like doing the boneyard shopping because I'm like a very careful like type shopper. So I'm always like checking everything out, but like never like pull the trigger. You know what I mean? But like,
Oh yeah,
but then I see like some of the fines that people are getting, like when I went to the Stone Mountain Hamfest here like last week, like this guy got like a really cool little 50-watt mobile rig for like less than $50, and I'm
Oh
like,
yeah.
that's just be cool to have one of those just around you. I mean, just to play with or put in your other vehicle. Put in.
Oh yeah. One of my rules of thumb is this, and this is real interesting. If I'm flying to like a hamvention or something, okay, I'll find something, okay, and I'm like, and I'm flying, and I'm like,
You're
oh,
booked. You said you're booked up for Hamcation this year, right?
yeah, I'm booked up for
Oh
hamcation.
yeah,
We're gonna be
I don't have my
driving there.
reservations yet, but Ham Radio Prep and World Radio League, we're doing tables there, and we're gonna have a blast. So we
Oh
we
yeah,
we got the tables
we'll be
booked.
Valerie and I will be knocking your doors down. And I have her, she has a shirt like me too. So and that's one of the things that I wanted to do was to make sure that people know that she's with me. And one of the things that she does, and she's always helped me, is doing the videography. She does a fantastic job on that. So I'm real excited about that. But my rule of thumb is like we're gonna be driving, of course, over to Orlando from Tampa. I probably won't find anything. Okay, I'll have my SUV with me. You know, nice big backspace, and I won't find a thing. But then I go flying somewhere, and I'll find something. It's just like it never fails. That's kind of my rule of
Yeah.
thumb with something like that.
Man, Tampa's great. I actually have family in Tampa as well too. My wife and I have been down there and been to Clearwater and
Oh
St.
yeah.
Pete a bunch of times. Love it. And Florida has some of the best ham radio operators.
Oh yeah.
I went down to Destin like a few months ago at the end of the summer for my friend's birthday, and I brought my HT with me, and I was trying to hit this repeater that was just right next to where we were staying, and I program it really quick. I try to key it up twice and like give my call out on the repeater, and I forgot the CTCSS tone, and this guy who was just scanning just picked me up and called back to me. I can't remember what his name is. He's like, hey, I just picked you up on my. I was just scanning through, picked you up. You forgot to program your CTCSS, and so he picked me up and then reminded me, helped me program into the repeater, and ended up talking to the guy for like 30 minutes or something. So it's like I'm in Georgia. I think you guys have in Florida. You have like 2x or maybe even 3x the number of ham radio operators. So like, I mean,
Oh yeah.
you're in a great place for it.
It is, and that's one of the nice things. The clubs, for the most part, like I said, the clubs down here are very active, involved, and they get and see the really cool thing is they get family involved because obviously we know the future of ham radio is going to be getting like teens involved and kids in school, and and I tell you what, one of the things I will just jump all over is when I see like elementary students or high school students, getting, people getting them. I'm like, whoa, wow. I get that out there front page, front and center, because, that's the future of this hobby. And, it's just so wonderful to see that. And I'm going to
Yeah.
try to get my granddaughters when they're old enough to get into it as well. Cause I think it's just so cool.
That's one of the things with World Radio League in particular. One of the things that we're really focusing on is like the live contesting aspect of it too. Like I mentioned, the Georgia Tech ham radio team that we were chatting with, like they loved it. They loved the idea, and I would love to see like some college competitions going on, and it's just it's a real challenge to like make ham radio competitions work really well, especially for like colleges and things, because you want to make it about the operating, and you want to make it about learning skills, and not just make it about having you know the best operating conditions, the best operating geography, and the best antenna and equipment, right? But I love I think as far as like getting folks involved like earlier, and especially like at the collegiate level, having kind of like the competitive, and even just like kind of tracking your progress part of it is something that people are going to love. I mean, it's something that I love. So i feel like um I feel like there's a lot of newer folks that like the gamification aspect of it. Which look at Poda, man. Poda is awesome, and Poda was like a godsend to
Oh yeah.
amateur radio. Like, and I think that like apps like that are like just you're using technology to engage with it and show people what's really possible. Like we need more stuff like PODA out there. That's
Well, ARRL just came out with a book on POTA, and
real. Yeah,
you know,
yeah. I saw you posted. You made like a
uh,
short about that. I think.
and what it is, it's not. And one of the things I'm going to do a review on it, but just it's not a how to with POTA. It's about I think there's 14 or 15 operators, and it goes through their styles. Everybody's different flavors. And what's really interesting on the cover, I know Michael Martin's real well. He's on the cover of that book, okay, which I thought was just absolutely hilarious. He's not in the book, but he's on the cover. A picture of him's on the cover. I'm
He's
like,
famous.
he is. I
Yeah.
said, you are famous, good guy. It's just,
He's a great guy. I've never met him. I've never talked to him in person, but I've exchanged some emails back and forth with him. Yeah, he's that guy's a gem. And I
he
know he
is.
does a lot of. I know I mean, he does a lot of POTA. Even like I saw some videos he was doing recently with like POTA events and POTA meetups, and I mean, I guess that's how you get your face on the cover of a POTA book.
Yeah.
You know.
And I'll tell you what, the other thing that I think he's probably, I call him one of the consummate experts on, is on the FT 891. He knows that radio backwards and forwards. And, one of the
Yeah.
pieces of advice that he gave about that radio, because a lot of people are just like, Yaesu FT 891, yeah, it's great radio, but, Yaesu has that infamous menu. And, one of the things that he said was, a lot of times, when you go in and you set those settings, and this is one of the things that I try to get across to people. People are so bent out of shape because I have to do this and do this and do this. And I said, you know what? You pretty much set it and forget it. Really, I mean, except for flipping through your bands, that's all you really need to do. You don't need to go in and adjust this and adjust that each time. People are so bent out of shape about that and getting deep into menus when you don't really have to.
It's true. I mean, I always I mean, even on my like icom, I found something I found a menu option that I'd never used before. I've had and haven't had the radio for over a year, and you're like, wait, what the heck is this? There's so you can find out all these little tips and tricks, especially if someone like shows you something new. And like that's a lot of what we're trying to do with like the HF masterclass is kind of like undercover those things, because if you're just trying to do it yourself, sometimes it takes you forever to figure out um, all of the tips and tricks that somebody who's been using that radio would know for a while.
Well, one of the
Have you
things.
got
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was gonna say, have you gotten into the flex radios at all?
Oh, I would love to. I would love
Yeah,
to.
yeah.
It's just like, but it's like, yeah. Well, I'm going to be having to spend a lot of money on some dental work coming up. So it's like, I mean, I'm talking thousands and thousands of dollars. So it's
Hey
like my
man,
ham.
you don't have to tell me. I work in ham radio, and that's out of my price range right now. So
I would love
if anybody
yeah.
from Flex is watching, you know,
Yes. Either
help a
one of
ham
us.
radio prep guy out here, like
Yeah. Please. Well, I know right now a couple of their more popular ones are back ordered. I mean, it's just they're just they do such a great job with that. I can't say enough about that. And the other thing for me too is you know people talk about, and one of the things that I've gotten to know a bunch of people on YouTube, and they've also pointed me to MTC down in Texas. Okay, because people think DX Engineering, Gigaparts, and Hammer Outlet, which is all well and good, but MTC, main trading company down in Texas, Vern Six, and I don't know if you've seen him or not
I've seen his videos. I love his
yeah,
videos.
Bird's a great guy. I'm really good friends with him. And he's real good friends with the owner of MTC, and they just do such a great job. They're a mom and pop kind of store, but they do it, and that's one of the things that I'm always in favor of. Promoting those kind of operations, okay? Because your DX engineerings are all going to be around. Your Gigaparts is going to be around. Your ham radio outlet's going to be around. But MTC is dependent upon us to help them with their business. And
Yeah.
it's just so nice to see people involved in getting engaged in things like that. So but yeah, it's really nice to see that.
So what are you planning upcoming with the channel? You got a kind of content outline of what you're going to be doing in the
Yeah,
holidays?
right now, excuse me. I got several videos in the works right now. Going to be doing a series on the 705 because I think it's just such a cool radio. It's just like it's so versatile, and looking at different options. And I'm really interested in showing operating it maybe via solar, operating it via battery, operating it in different ways and in different conditions. And that's one of the things that I'm doing. So I'm kind of working on a series with that right now because I just absolutely love it. Oh, and I got a POV cage for it. I don't know if you've seen them. Um,
Is that like a
um,
go box kind of thing that
well, let me here. It's sitting back here. Let me do some
yeah,
show and
pull it
tell
up.
here. It's a
What is
full
this?
on cage for it, and it has. I got the one that has a plastic cover on the front,
But is
and
this
see
for
that.
just protection, for easy
Yeah,
carrying?
it's mostly for like protection because you can see right here, like there's a
That is
kickstand right down
slick,
here
man.
at the
That's like an
bottom of that.
iPhone case for your
Yeah,
705 basically.
and then you can take screen protector off on here, which is really nice. I absolutely love this, and it fits perfectly like inside, one of those I call them army bags, go bags or whatever that people get. But I fell in love with that, and the guy, it's an American company that does it because I thought about getting the WinCamp, and WinCamp is just like this, but I really like the fact that they didn't have this. And I think this is important because, all your controls are up front and you don't want to damage your controls. So, you know,
Yeah, that would be a really good. Yeah, have you ever heard like I guess they call it like rucking, but that's like kind of something that I'm looking to get into where you just like you basically pack up, you take a pack, you like go up on a mountain and stuff like that. Like it sounds like a 705 would be perfect
yeah,
for that type of, you know,
it, it,
operations and
it really
hiking and
would.
what's I mean, what that thing probably weighs like just a few pounds, right? Like
Yeah,
if
I'm going to say probably about, I'm going to say 10, 12 pounds, something like
10 to
that.
12 pounds.
Yeah.
Versus
Yeah.
the versus like a full size IC 7300 is
7,300.
probably
Well, I see,
20 maybe.
yeah, that's
Maybe
about
it's
20.
probably
And
a little bit more.
and I've seen people build go boxes for them.
Oh, I got before I know we're kind of running out of time, but I have a really random thing. There's this new series on Netflix that's called Where the Light something like this. This is a super cool kind of like almost it's like a shortwave, but it's a whole there the whole show is about like shortwave radio. And it's a
Mm,
brand new series on Netflix. And I saw that and I was like, I'm telling you, people are getting into radio like never before. It's called All the Light We Cannot See, and it's like the crazy story of like World War II. They're trying to like uh basically fox hunt this shortwave radio that's sending codes to the allies, and the Germans are trying to fox hunt it. I'm only like 2 episodes in, but it's super super cool. So anybody that's like interested in HF shortwave type history stuff, super super cool series.
yeah, and it's real interesting that you bring up shortwave because that's on my Christmas list for my wife. I've got a radio picked out because back in the day, I had one of the realistic 9 band things from Radio Shack, which was fantastic, and I would listen to shortwave out in the summer, sitting on the back porch, and it was just a total blast and so cool. Well, I'm like, you know what? I think it's great because this one also picks up SSB as well too, and I'm like, it's a Texan and I've
That's
I've done
awesome.
my research. I've already told my wife. I said, "Here's my Christmas list. That's it. That's all I
I
want." So
built I built a little receiver when I was a kid, and I don't even remember how I did it. Or I mean, I think it was some sort of a kit or something like that. But that type of stuff is also really cool. I think there must be some people that are still doing like kits for schools and stuff like that. I hope so. But
I got a question for you, kind of like kind of sort of wrapping things up. What do you guys have in the works that's coming up? Is there anything you can kind of?
oh man, yeah. I mean, like um, we are we're gearing up for our new amateur extra course, which, as soon as the question pool is released, we're going to be doing that. But the big thing that we're working on right now is the World Radio League. So it's www.worldradioleague.com if you want to check it out. But basically, we're just building a whole new sort of like logging live competition app, track your progress towards different awards, things like that, and we're kind of helping you like, okay, so you get your license with ham radio prep, you can go over, start logging your first contact inside it and start sort of getting involved. And without giving away too much, I mean, the logging interface, what I say is kind of sets us apart. It's just really easy to log in and start using. But we're going to be very quickly doing things from just like a live perspective and a gamification perspective that haven't really been done yet. Andy, thank you so much for the support, man. That really means a lot. It's crazy just how much it takes to build each one of these little features, but we're really on a roll. Like we've got a good team here, and inside the community forums, um, we are chatting with a lot of people who are using the logbook. So they'll send over like, "Hey, we really want to have this feature. We really want, we would really appreciate this." So we're working with the members like Andy here in the chat who are letting us know like, "Hey, certain functionalities that you want," and we're just uh, trying to build as fast as possible to, like I would say like, you take a look at like POTA, right, and like how successful it's been. We want to build something that's awesome and new, and is just showing a new way to operate and enjoy amateur radio, and then connect with people from all over the world.
Boy,
And
it sounds like you
that's
got a good pulse on what's going on, James. I mean, seriously, that is just
we're having a
that's
blast, man, and that's
that's
the best.
awesome.
That's the best part of it is we're having a blast while we do it too. And look, I mean, there's certain people that's, we can't meet everybody's requirements right now. Like import export, we're working towards the import and export of the log files, which we know is really important. But you got to do it the right way. You don't want to mess
Right.
up. You don't want to mess up somebody's import, and then you're having to clean up a bunch of bad logs. So we're trying to do things the right way, but we're trying to build things that are totally new and fun too, which is, we don't want this to just be the same, a duplicate app. We want it to be like a whole new way to experience and log your contacts and have fun with other operators.
Absolutely, absolutely. Any closing thoughts? Anything you'd like to share before we wrap things up?
Man, just thanks for setting this up. Thanks for, I had like basically a 12-hour day of development, and you like you drugged me out and got me onto YouTube today. So that's good. But appreciate you, kind of reaching out and taking the time to set up the interview. And next time I come on your show, I'll have my office set up here, and
Well, that
maybe by that time I'll have my ham shack actually set up in this office too, so I can
that'd
show
be
you.
awesome. That would
Yeah,
be awesome. Well, hang tight here after we close out, because one of the things that I like to do, all my guests, I send them some of my swag, and that includes like a Ham Radio Basics mug and a hat. So
thanks, man. Yeah, I'll get
so
you. I'll
that
get you hooked up with some ham radio prep stuff too. And I want to hear about. I want to. I know you got some obstacles with getting the flagpole set up, but next time we talk, I want to hear. I want to
oh,
hear
absolutely.
that you got it
And
done.
I assume you're going to be at Hamcation, right?
Yeah, gonna be a hamcation.
Well, you'll
And
you'll see us
the
for
rest of the
sure.
ham radio prep team will be there too. So
Awesome. We'll
you'll get to
get
meet
a chance
Professor
to meet
Jim
him,
and Max
and
and
I'll tell you
everybody.
what. Yeah, I'm anxious to meet him too because I think he's a gem. He just absolutely wow. He's just so good and so relatable. I love him and his videos. It's just absolutely so good. So I want to thank all everybody for stopping by tonight. I know Andy was here, Chris was here tonight, Cooley was here tonight. Thank you guys so much for stopping by. And if you guys can just continue to spread the word about Ham Radio Prep and also the new venture, okay, the World Radio League, because I think these are just, James has his pulse on things with the ham radio right now, and it's so important because as the core message behind my channel and just about everybody else's is just to promote this the most incredible hobby in the world to everybody. So Thank you all for tuning in, guys. And remember, it's always a great day to make a QSO. 7 threes, everybody.